thanks to everybody for joining. We'll give a minute or two for people to file in, and then we'll get started. And if anyone has questions, we'll do those at the very end of the presentation. The Q&A button is how you do that. The chat function is disabled, so yeah, questions, just put them in the Q&A and we'll get to them as we have time at the end of this. All right, thanks to everybody for joining. In the name of time, we'll go ahead and get the ball rolling on this. If you have colleagues that joined late and missed the beginning, we are recording this and we'll share it out with everybody afterwards. Yeah, thanks again. And Abby, if we can go ahead and load up the slides, I will kick us off. Great. So again, thanks for joining us today. My name is Dan Taylor with the Blue Green Alliance. I will start off by giving us a brief overview of the Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind Project and the opportunity that presents itself to us. We have some great speakers with us today as well. Jason Parker with the Virginia State Building and Construction Trades, Letitia James from the Urban League of Hampton Roads, and Senator Jennifer McClellan, who was instrumental in getting the Virginia Clean Economy Act passed, which helped lead to this project. We'll go ahead and go to the next slide. So just briefly wanted to touch on the organization I'm with, Blue Green Alliance. We are a coalition of labor unions and environmental organizations working together to solve environmental challenges in ways that create and maintain quality jobs. So offshore wind very much fits into this and is very much a thing we are interested in and supportive of. And we'll go to the next slide. And this is just a sort of brief look at the organizations that are the members of Blue Green Alliance, both on the labor and the environmental side. And go to the next slide. So just wanted to, at the very beginning here, sort of give us a national overview of where we're at in terms of offshore wind. So the Biden administration has set a national offshore wind target of 30 gigawatts by 2030, with a target of over 70,000 workers employed in the sector by 2030, 12 billion per year in capital investment, powering over 10 million homes, and up to 500 million in port upgrades. And that includes some federal investment that is going into the Portsmouth Marine Terminal as part of last year's infrastructure bill. And we'll touch on that a little bit more here in a minute. We'll go to the next slide. And then in terms of the Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind Project itself, in June of 2020, Dominion finished the successful installation of the 2-turbine, 12 megawatt pilot project. It's 27 miles off the coast of Virginia Beach, and was the first offshore wind farm to be approved by BOEM, the Federal Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, and installed in federal waters. The plan is for Dominion to apply the valuable permitting, design, installation, and operations experience from this pilot project to the proposed 2,600 megawatt commercial project that we're here to talk about today. So there's some stats here about that project. 176 projected turbines, 14.7 megawatts each. These are the largest commercially available turbines, and it's slated to be the largest offshore wind project in the US and among the largest in the world. So a very big deal. And we'll go to the next slide. So I wanted to talk a little bit as well about some of the local benefits. So I mentioned before the Portsmouth Marine Terminal, slated to receive $20 million to construct staging and storage areas for wind turbine components. This will support union jobs for dock workers, crane operators, and building trades members. Siemens Gamesa has announced the construction of the first offshore wind turbine blade facility in the United States on an 80-acre section of the Marine Terminal. This new facility and its operations and maintenance are projected to create 310 new jobs, including 50 service jobs directly related to the CVOW project. Atlantic Wind Transfers will provide crew transport services from Newport News. So to summarize, we are asking, or Blue Green Alliance, that the SEC should support this project and assist Dominion in ensuring that the Virginia workforce is ready. Sorry, I used to live in West Virginia. And that we have a strong workforce development plan. So just for a little bit of background here, and we can go to the next slide, there is a current open comment period at the State Corporation Commission. The Virginia Clean Economy Act requires the SEC to approve a minimum of 5,200 megawatts of offshore wind by the end of 2034. The law also requires, you can go back to the law also requires Dominion to develop and submit a plan for workforce development, maximizing local economic benefits and prioritizing jobs for historically disadvantaged workers and Virginia residents. We believe Dominion has the expertise to deliver on this promise, and this comment period provides an opportunity to build support for this project and offshore wind in Virginia. Specifically to encourage Dominion to strengthen the economic development plan, set equitable pathways to maximize benefits for Virginians, invest in workforce readiness programs in Portsmouth and Hampton Roads to ensure, career pathways for historically disadvantaged workers, to make sure they can obtain family-sustaining jobs with strong worker protections, and develop a local supply chain. That's something we'd really like to see. Establishing labor management partnerships to maximize jobs, really getting the full value out of this project. So we laid some of this stuff out in a follow-up document that we'll share to everyone who registered for this workshop today, along with these slides and a recording of the webinar. So keep an eye out for that, because I know this is a lot of information. And if you are interested in commenting, we will, at the very end, give you some information on that as well. And with that, now that we have the introduction out of the way, I will hand it off to Jason Parker with the Virginia State Building and Construction Trades. Thank you, Jason.
Dan, thank you to you and your team for having us afforded this opportunity to speak with everybody before the SEC commentary period. Let me introduce myself. I'm Jason Parker. I'm a inside journeyman wireman. That means electrician with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 1340, Newport News, Virginia. And I'm gonna go through this, who I am, and it's for a reason. I spent 20 years out at NASA, and the last 7 years of it, I was with predictive testing and inspection as the infrared thermographer. I spent 5.5 years as the president and assistant business manager of 1340, and I'm finishing up my first term as a Virginia State Building and Construction Trades Council president. So this is an important moment historically. You know what? I'm gonna stop there. I'm gonna wax poetically a little bit. In a career, we all have this dream of having that one moment where you stand at a doorway to something that's unique, something that's a little bit of a game changer, world changing, and this is it. The Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind Project is an amazing opportunity for the Hampton Roads area, for the state of Virginia, for the United States of America, and for the world at large. We've all seen the different bit of scientific commentary, peer-reviewed studies that's going on with mankind's connection to hydrocarbons and some of the disastrous effects that are projected in the future. And this is a chance to take our energy portfolio and expand it past just the basic oil, natural gas, and other sources, which we also support many of those too. We believe you need a balanced portfolio, but this is a real chance for us to start a brand new industry. And if you take a look at where we're at here in the Mid-Atlantic and on the Chesapeake Bay, which I believe is maybe one of the greatest bays, if not in the top 2 or 3 bays in the world. It's a warm port. It has a deep, rich maritime tradition, has an incredible military community attached to it. And from all those large vessels, we received a interesting bit of infrastructure called bridge tunnels. This allows these big vessels to move back and forth without disrupting the flow of commerce and, of course, movement of our citizens. And that makes for the perfect spot for us to utilize these jack ships and to stage an actual offshore wind industry. It gives us an opportunity here to be a part of, even past Virginia, potentially the supply chain leading to the Carolinas and other states, and get us to having a very robust and real offshore wind industry. And one of the things about offshore wind that doesn't get discussed a lot is the fuel. So when you think about the fuel for offshore wind, it's wind, right? That's your prime mover. If you're cutting flux, creating current, your prime mover is going to be wind. The cost of wind yesterday is the same as the cost of wind today, and it will be the same as the cost of wind tomorrow. Now, people would say, Jason, that's fine, but there's cost to maintenance and building. But that's with any capital project that goes with sourcing some form of power, whether it's hydroelectric, whether it's an oil fuel facility, a coal burning facility, natural gas burning facility, or a nuclear power plant. So those are already baked into the proverbial cake. And this is a national security item, because as we've seen with geopolitical instability, and we're seeing it right now in Ukraine and in other places, we sometimes source our energy forms from places that aren't particularly good for the planet or for mankind in general. And this is a way of dialing down some of that dependence and domiciling a lot of those industries here in the United States of America. And I put energy sources in the same place that I put food, potable water, and manufacturing. So this is a fantastic, unique opportunity, a once in a generation opportunity to do something that potentially strengthens our national security, broadens our portfolio of energy sources, and cleans up the planet in a nice way. So as was discussed earlier, it's the benefits. The benefits of the CVOW project in the Hampton Roads area is jobs. And I mean, there's lots of them. We'll start with construction, something very near and dear to my heart and dear to my council's heart. These are real middle-class jobs. Dan mentioned it earlier, family sustaining wages, benefits on day one. Usually when you come out of your apprenticeship, you're vested in your retirement. This is the other college. You will be trained. We will train you, and you will come out of it making real wages and with no debt. Right now, the state of Virginia is missing about 20,000 construction workers. And so this is a great way to help bolster those numbers and bring Virginia, or I should say, expand the amount of world-class workforce we have in Virginia, which will bring more industry to the area and to the state. There's 3 things that are usually measured when a industry wants to come to a region. That is the quality of your workforce. This would help. That is the quality of your education system. This would help. And it's the quality of your infrastructure, which we're working on right now with a brand new infrastructure package. So you have the jobs in construction. There's another tier of jobs that would be attached to this, as Dan was talking about. You have the Siemens Gamesa the blade finishing factory. That's going to be hundreds and hundreds of other middle-class jobs. And one of the nice things about the construction work is they tool up nicely to become the technicians of those plants. This is why I told you about NASA. That's what happened to me, and I am not alone. I'm not even a unique story. Then you have the maritime jobs associated with the project, which there are many, and we have a fine tradition here in the Hampton Roads area. And then finally, you have the service and ancillary jobs that go along with the supply chain. So this is going to be a humongous economic benefit to the Hampton Roads area. And, you know, this is the kickoff party. It's the largest project in the United States. It's going to put 2.6 gigs into the grid, and by 2034, 5.2 gigs, I believe. So this is, and it will expound upon from there. When you take a look at Europe, you have 40 something years of offshore wind there. And so you have people already retiring from the beginning of that industry. And in this industry generations will go on and work in the offshore wind industry from this area. We will become experts in it, and it will bring lots of prosperity to many, many households. Now, you know, every opportunity has its obstacles. I know that's a bit opposite of the axiom. And we have sat down with Dominion, and we've partnered with Dominion, and we've talked about it at great length, exhaustively. We've had for the last 2.5 years easily. And though with them teaming with the trades out of the local unions, they do get local hiring, and they do get, because we're a cross section of society, they do get diversified hiring. With our program Helmets to Hard Hats, which is a national nonprofit organization designed to take your active military, your reservists, your veterans, and your guardsmen and women and transition them into the construction industry. We have many, many avenues and many ways of helping them people come into this industry. But as we talked about the diversified hiring in some of these underserved communities, we began to want to expound upon it and open that nozzle up a little more. And we believe that, you know, we believe we have a heavy commitment to those communities through Dominion, through the building trades. The building trades themselves have numerous apprentice readiness programs. One program, for example, is our multi-craft core curriculum program. That's the MC3. That's designed to take folks and begin to steer their academics towards what our apprenticeships need. But there's another shoe to drop here. And this is more of a governmental item. You know, when you look at the trades, when you look at the industries that are around us, we kind of depend on the state education system to give us young folks who have high school education, or at least some way to get a GED. And that's going to be one of the problems with some of our standards in our apprenticeship programs. And we think that this is a wonderful opportunity for us to partner up with local governments, state government, and with the federal government to give some of these folks who maybe didn't finish high school, or maybe came out of high school and have kind of gone down the path of adulthood, you know, a while, maybe a few years, to where their confidence level on some of the academics is shaky now. And we would like to partner somewhere down the line and create a workforce readiness program, some kind of building that we can all get together, take these folks, energize their academics so that they're ready to meet the aptitude tests and the other standards that are in our apprenticeships. And this would be a great opportunity for us all to get together. And that is something I thought was very interesting in our conversations with Dominion, that we could have just rested on, I guess you would say, what we already have, but we think that there is something more to add to those communities. And a project of this size gives a chance to really show off our stuff. And you got to remember, this council, the Virginia State Building Construction Council, has to look at construction in the state of Virginia in a holistic manner. It goes beyond just, you know, this incredibly large size project. We've got a $3.4 billion bridge tunnel project. We've got casinos. We've got, I mean, billions and billions and billions annually in this huge military footprint that is in the Hampton Roads area. We have never-ending work in furthering education and higher education. We have all kinds of state work. We have a very large infrastructure package along the way. So we think that this is an opportunity to take some of these people, give them a chance or a path to the trades. You got to remember, these trades lead to bachelors in sciences. I mean, your best double E's a lot of times are people who are electricians. Same way with mechanical engineers. A lot of these trades lead to architecture. You also have management in these companies. You have supply chain management. You have estimating, and you have ownership of companies that comes along with this because of the disciplines they learn in the trade. So please recognize the value of the CVOW project to the state of Virginia, to the Hampton Roads area. And please go to the comment section of the SEC and comment on this project and its need for, I think, all the reasons we listed. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk, Dan.
Thank you very much, Jason. That was great. And I will go ahead and pass it off to our next speaker, excuse me, Letitia James with the Urban League of Hampton Roads. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you again for the invitation for the Urban League to have an opportunity to express our support for the CVOW project as well. My role with Urban League of Hampton Roads is to oversee the operations and external affairs for the organization. Our president and CEO is Gil Bland, and we are one of 90 affiliates across the country that's under the umbrella of the National Urban League, which is one of the oldest civil rights organizations in the country, that was intentionally created to provide economic self-reliance and equity for the African American community. And the affiliate here in Hampton Roads was founded in 1978. And like our other affiliates across the country, our programming primarily serves underserved, under-resourced communities. And in our minds, we believe that the offshore wind opportunity that exists for Hampton Roads is a tremendous opportunity for employment for the communities and clients that we serve primarily. Being the only affiliate for the state of Virginia, one thing to point out is that Virginia is home to the 9th largest Black population in the country, and Hampton Roads in particular is also home to the 14th largest Black population. And we know that Hampton Roads is not unique to the needs of employment opportunities, and not just employment opportunities, good paying, well-paying positions with excellent healthcare benefits, all the things that allows someone to thrive economically, to have the same benefits and quality of life that others in the community provide. And I'm, incredibly proud of the role that the Urban League serves, because all of our programs and services, which are free and open to the community, are directly related to closing the racial wealth gap that exists for minorities. One thing to point out that I believe is important as we're talking about employment opportunities is to talk about where we are in regards to the racial wealth gap that exists within minority communities, especially recognizing with the recent 2020 census that people of color will actually become the majority of the US population by 2044, with our young people of color already at the majority. But one of the things that is incredibly important, and it's related to the employment opportunities that exist with this new industry, while we will become the majority of the population, we as the Black community only possess less than 3% of the nation's wealth. and specific to racial wealth gaps that exist specifically for the Black community, income, education, housing, and investment. That a study by Citibank had said if it were closed 20 years ago, if these racial wealth gaps were closed 20 years ago, $16 trillion would be added to the US economy. And if it was closed today, 5 trillion would be restored. And the point that I'm making is that the Urban League takes the role that we serve for the community very seriously, and our efforts and our free programs and services within education, within employment, within financial literacy, health and housing. These are all efforts to help people be in a better place for their quality of life. Like Jason had mentioned to each of you, is the Urban League is proud to be a partner with Dominion and all the other organizations to help create employment opportunities for the community, particularly communities of color, people of color, and working with Jason and other organizations, of course, Dominion, our elected officials like Senator McClellan and others, to inform and educate the community about the variety of jobs that exist within these different industries, and helping people be prepared for the jobs that are available, such as the apprenticeship programs that are going to be wonderful opportunities, and not just for adults, but preparing our young people in particular for these amazing careers, not waiting until a student graduates from college. We understand that not everyone is going to choose going to college after high school for whatever reason that will be. And there is a tremendous opportunity to expose our young people at an early age, and middle school to high school, to create opportunities and expose them and prepare them for careers in offshore industry, as well as, of course, our talented young people. And the goal to be very intentional in making sure that the talent in the workforce is diverse, and making sure that people of color and under-resourced communities where they were traditionally barriers to employment opportunities such as this, that we expose them early and help them have better access to how they can become prepared and employed. So, at the end of the day, we are excited to be a partner and a liaison to all of the organizations and community-based organizations to really help get people to work and improve their quality of life. So thank you for the opportunity to express our support, and happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you so very much for being here with us and speaking. That was fantastic. And yeah, we'll do Q&A at the end. Next up, I want to introduce Senator McClellan, who again was instrumental in getting the Virginia Clean Economy Act passed, which directly led to this opportunity with the CVOW project. So Senator McClellan, I will turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Dan, and thank you for everything that you do, and Jason, to provide leadership in this transition to a clean energy economy. Thank you, Letitia, for your leadership with the Urban League and Hampton Roads, and to ensure that the jobs that are created through the Clean Economy Act and through the explosion of wind and solar energy here in Virginia are good union jobs that reflect the diversity of our workforce and increase the diversity of our workforce. Frankly, there's no better place in America to better highlight the economic imperative to transition to advance clean energy and tackle climate change than Virginia and Hampton Roads. You can see both the tremendous cost of climate change and the tremendous benefit of the clean energy investment. On the cost side, Virginia Beach will spend $77 million a year to pay for increased flooding. Norfolk projects a $1.57 billion cost for increased storm risk. And the impact of climate change disproportionately harms our communities of color, both in the Hampton Roads regions and around the country. On the benefits, we've seen thousands of new jobs, and we'll see thousands of new jobs as Hampton Roads becomes the offshore wind capital of the East Coast. And as we have been making this transition to the clean economy, too often we've seen and heard tired arguments that pit climate change against job creation. But thanks to the people in this virtual room and thanks to the Clean Economy Act, we proved and are proving that investments in clean energy will strengthen jobs, and particularly union jobs. Before I go into a little bit more about the opportunities ahead of us, let me first share how we got here in this moment of clean energy. How did Virginia go from being in the back of the pack to the front of the pack as far as leading the clean energy transition? So 3 years ago, we were seeing clean energy jobs go to neighboring states. We had restrictive rules here in Virginia that prevented innovation in the clean energy market, that hindered the ability for both wind and solar. And working with a broad coalition that brought together industry, labor, the environmental community, the public health community, we started working on the Clean Economy Act. In January 2020, Rip Sullivan and I introduced the bill to modernize Virginia's energy grid, address climate change, and unleash job creation. And that was because we saw that this shift was coming, and Virginia could either be in the front, or we could watch those jobs go elsewhere. And so we came together with this broad coalition that no one said could get this done. But we passed this bill, making Virginia the first state in the South to transition to 100% clean energy standard in March, in 2 months. We thought it would take a couple of years, but we did it in 2 months. When the bill passed, I felt like jumping up and shouting, "The eagle has landed," because it is that transformative. And just as the race to the moon created innovation and technology, it created new jobs that we still see today. And that is why it was so important that we make sure that these new jobs be hiring local, that the jobs go to local people, that the jobs be union jobs, that the jobs include communities that aren't traditionally a part of transformative industry changing and industry shifts. And it was very intentional. We put in the law a requirement that these jobs be filled with local people. So what does that mean? What does this whole act mean for everyday Virginians? The VCEA is estimated to create 13,000 jobs per year, drive up to $70 billion in private investment into Virginia. And a big part of that is wind. Now, not all of those jobs are wind jobs, but a big part is wind, because we have to have wind energy in the mix if we're going to get to 100% clean energy. All of this eventually will lead to lower electric rates, because we have seen that wind energy, the cost of wind energy over time, as well as solar, combined with energy efficiency that controls demand, will help control the cost of electricity going forward. Now, that brings us to the Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind Project. It will be the largest offshore wind project in America, with the capacity to power over 660,000 homes and reduce 5 million tons of carbon dioxide pollution every year. That is estimated to be about 1,100 jobs and $210 million injected into the local economy. It's not just the coastal Virginia offshore wind project itself, but this project is going to be a lightning rod to spur wind energy manufacturing here in Hampton Roads. We saw a great example of this in October when Siemens, I can never say it, Siemens Gamesa announced they would create 310 new jobs at the Portsmouth Marine Terminal with their new wind turbine blade manufacturing facility. Because the manufacturers want to be where the wind power is going to be. Our ability to seize this opportunity as a leader in the clean economy depends on making the right investment. We're seeing the region come together to train workers for these jobs. Thank you to Organized Labor for the critical role you've played in developing apprentice programs, supporting training programs like Tidewater Community College, Centura, and other colleges. We are working to make sure that we are expanding these training opportunities, both in wind and solar at our HBCUs. And frankly, there are going to be thousands of jobs at the Central Wind Offshore Wind Project and throughout the supply chain to support that project. And we want to see these jobs go to Hampton Roads residents. We want to specifically create opportunities in Black and Brown communities that have been left out of technology transitions in the past. And so that is why we put in the law a provision that requires Dominion to submit a plan that will use local workers, that will advance Virginia's workforce and economic development goals, including apprenticeships and workforce training, to consult with Virginia's Chief Workforce Development Office and the Virginia Economic Development Partnership and the Virginia's Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, to give priority in hiring and training to veterans, to local workers, to workers from historically disadvantaged communities, and when possible, to procure equipment from Virginia-based or US-based manufacturers using materials made in Virginia or in the United States. Again, those are not just goals, those are requirements for this project. And the wind jobs coming to Hampton Roads will go to the people of Hampton Roads and will reflect the full diversity of this great region. And so as I wrap, I want to thank all of you for what you are doing to create jobs, and particularly for you to participate in the regulatory process to help make all of this happen by providing comment to the SCC. Again, Hampton Roads Wind Energy Hub is the definition of Made in America. We're going to make American energy, Virginia industry right here with Virginia union workers to power both our Virginia economy and the national economy. And again, we will look back and say, this was our moonshot moment. This was our moonshot moment. And I cannot be more excited to watch it come to fruition with your help.
Thank you so very much. That was fantastic. I appreciate you being here. Before we get to our Q&A period at the end, I'm going to put up the slides again real quick and just talk about the comment period specifically, and if you are interested in engaging in that, on how you may do that. Oh yeah, one quick slide before we get to that. In terms of Blue Green Alliance in general, we work on offshore wind in a number of states, and sort of our priorities overall. Just wanted to share that. Domestic content, has been mentioned, I think is crucial to make sure that we're creating supply chain jobs. Not only does that mean more jobs, that also means over time, the cost of these projects will go down. Lots of labor stuff we would like to see here in terms of organizing rights and neutrality for ports, project labor agreements, community workforce benefits, prevailing wage, local hire, apprenticeship utilization, all that great stuff. So now on to the comment period. We'll go to the next slide. Well, we'll get to it. This is just an overview of what's already been mentioned in terms of the Clean Economy Act. So this will go out with the rest of the slides if you want that background information. And now we'll go to the next slide. So if you would like to get involved, the State Corporation Commission is currently accepting written comments now up until May 16th. And then on May 16th, they will also be hearing verbal testimony beginning at 10 a.m. in the morning. And we'll go to the next slide. We are suggesting, if you would like to comment, written comments are probably the easiest way to do it. Again, there are multiple ways to do this. Choose whatever works best for you. But written comments, so anytime now between now and May 16th, go to the State Corporation Commission website. The direct link is listed here, but if you just go to their website, select cases, then select submit public comments. Then you'll find the case number, which is listed here. If you go on the site, it'll also list a description of what the cases are. It should be easy to find, and then submit comments, and it will give you the form to do so. And we'll go on to the next slide. And then lastly, if you would like to do verbal comments, May 16th is the date they are taking those, beginning at 10 a.m. But you do have to pre-register to do that by May 12th at 5 p.m. So the end of the day, next Thursday. There are a couple different ways you can do that. There is a form you can fill out on their website. You can also fill out a paper form, send it to their email, or call this number that's listed here. Provide your name and phone number, and the way it works, I believe, is that they will call you during the hearing to provide that testimony. So again, we'll share all this information out afterwards, and that is basically how you will get involved here. In terms of questions, I wanted to get to one first. I think it's sort of an amalgamation of questions we got, and I hope it does it justice. But it's a thing that I've also seen out there related to this case in the media and in the public. So there is an issue of cost with the project to ratepayers, and I think sort of weighing that against the economic benefits of the project. And I was just curious if anyone on the panel has any sort of thoughts related to that. I know Senator McClellan, you had some comments about the sort of long-term effect on rates that we expect this to have, but if anybody would sort of like to weigh in on the cost to economic benefit calculus as it relates to this, we'll open that up.
I'll make a comment if you don't mind. You know, this is the kickoff party to an industry. It's going to be the most expensive at the very beginning, and so you're not going to find any kind of economy of scale until you get better and better at producing the product and get more and more out there. I think people will see the benefit over time. I think that especially over time, the benefit economically to the Hampton Roads area is going to be enormous as the years go by, and it will bring other industries to the region also, even maybe many not even related to offshore wind. So I think that just taking a snapshot here in time, and that's how you're judging this whole entire endeavor for offshore wind in Virginia is a very short green way of looking at it. And I would encourage people to think about it on the long green and what it can mean for generations of Virginians working in the energy sector.
Yeah, and I would add to that, there's a estimate. I was actually trying to pull it up while Jason was talking, but the VCA is actually estimated to reduce electric costs over time, I think by about 30%. And I will fact check that number and put it in the Q&A piece. But it has always been estimated over time to reduce costs. But it is true that when you first put a new project in place, you have to pay that cost, but it will be spread over a number of years. I understand there will be an announcement today by Dominion that I think around 5 o'clock with some of their intentions around that, where even though they are entitled to recover some of their costs in a rider up front. They're going to announce today, recognizing sort of where we are with inflation right now. They're going to take some steps to mitigate that. And I can't go into detail, but I'd say shortly after 5 o'clock, keep an eye out for that. But again, over time, electric costs will reduce. It is a fact. It is an inconvenient fact for some, but it is a fact that the cost of natural gas is going up. The cost of oil fluctuates. The cost of natural gas fluctuates based on what's happening in the world. And coal, the cost of coal, frankly, coal is not sustainable. There's a social cost of carbon. And for the first time in the Virginia Clean Economy Act, we recognize and we tell the State Corporation Commission, when you are looking at a project, you have to also consider the social cost of carbon, the healthcare costs related to asthma in communities where some of the carbon projects are located. So overall, this will reduce costs for Virginians and improve and inject more money in our economy through lower rates, lower cost of carbon impact on our everyday lives, and sustainable energy independence.
Great. Anyone else? I'll make one more plug here as well on the importance of building up domestic supply chains for this industry. I think, as Jason mentioned earlier, Europe has been doing this for 40 years. And because the US is just building up this industry, you know, a lot of the parts and expertise is being shipped over here. And obviously that adds to the project cost when we're producing things domestically, especially if we're producing things in the Hampton Roads area. You're talking about, you know, ways that are gonna, you know, drastically cut down on those costs related to these projects. Especially, we build sort of a manufacturing hub in the Hampton Roads area. You have offshore wind projects potentially happening in the Carolinas, all up and down the East Coast, and it could just really be a crucial component there. And if you have something you want to add, Letitia?
Yeah, to your point, and I didn't touch on it when I was speaking before, but I'm in agreement with, this is a game changer, right, for the economy and for the Hampton Roads region, and a game changer for people who traditionally may not have had the opportunity to be part of industries such as this, but the creation of a new industry such as offshore wind, and the opportunity of creating generational wealth on the front end, and particularly for underserved resource communities. But this is in addition to residents, it's also an opportunity for entrepreneurs, minority, women-owned businesses to be part of the supply chain, to be part of the opportunity to grow their business, develop a business, and also I know, like Norfolk State University, they have an innovation center that is about the development of entrepreneurs and connecting them to opportunities. But, you know, this is exciting to be able to work with everyone on this panel and other organizations to develop an infrastructure for getting people to work in these in all of the different opportunities that exist.
Thank you. We'll get to a couple more questions in our last 10 minutes here. This one I'll throw out here to everyone. A question about whether our panelists are satisfied with Dominion's current workforce development plan, and if there are ways that you see that it could be improved or bolstered, and opportunities related to that.
I'll go if you don't mind, Dan. So, you know, again, we sat down and basically the trades give them kind of everything they really need when it comes to the act. But I don't think anybody was satisfied from Dominion or from the trades. And we thought that we could expound upon it and get a whole lot more bang for the buck for those communities. And I do think, though, at that point, you're going to need for local government and state government, who is kind of, the underpinnings of the education system, to lean in on that. We have programs and we have lots of things, but a lot of our apprenticeship standards do demand that you have a high school or equivalent GED, and that's going to be tough. And the other part is, and we talked about this, is that you have these people who are just at their chops are down, if you will, so to speak, from the musician point of view. You've been out of high school for, I don't know, you're 29, you've been out of high school for 10 years. And let's say you graduated high school and you start facing word problems and algebraic formulas, and you're suddenly seizing up. When you get those people comfortable again, we need to be able to go through like National Electric Code. We need them to be able to do those word problems. We need them to get used to them. We're going to teach them the trigonometry. We're going to teach them the formulas, but they're going to have that base spit it out in a minute. They're going to have that base knowledge to do that, right? To be competent in doing the academics in these particular programs. And I think the state of Virginia would do itself well. And remember now, when you do that, you create an even broader world-class workforce. And that's something that will continue to attract even more industries and bring even more prosperity to the region. So I am satisfied with the direction we're going, but we've been on a bit of a shotgun wedding. The time schedule's been brisk, and we're all running as fast as we can at this thing. And we'd definitely like to get every ounce of benefit for these communities out of it that we can get.
All right, unless there are any other thoughts on the workforce development plan, we have a labor-related question. So this one might be of interest to you as well, Jason. A question in the chat about why not mandating project labor agreements or prevailing wage on these projects? What is the sort of state of that, and thoughts folks might have on that?
So I think that this is a more encompassing question. Jason Asher texted me. He's a good brother of mine. He's from the pipe trades. And I think he wanted to kind of angle that towards the senator, if that's okay. But we have a project labor agreement on this. I think you have to start thinking more of some of the other renewables that maybe are a little more out there in the wild, wild west, so to speak.
The bottom line answer comes down to political will. And right now, we've had regime change, and we also knew, even when we were in the majority in 2020, that it was a tenuous, we were 21-19 in the Senate, and there was a real fear that if we put that in at that point, we wouldn't get anything. But we also were fighting against efforts that had been successful to roll back requirements for project labor agreements that were in other contexts. I think, if I remember correctly, in transportation context. And so it was implied, and we very strongly encouraged industry to go down that path. But we need a strong labor majority in both the House and the Senate to get strong labor protections in place. So I have to, as a voting rights advocate, remind everyone your vote is your power. And if you want to see stronger labor protections in Virginia, it's not just about showing up on election day. It's about working with candidates at every level to say, this is what we need and why. Electing those candidates who will work for those protections, and showing up during the legislative session to remind folks of why those protections are important.
All right, got one last question here about comparing the CVOW project to existing nuclear power in Virginia, and sort of how does that compare in terms of the power generation, the shelf life of a generating facility, and general overall costs to ratepayers? Anybody have any thoughts there on nuclear and wind and the sort of how they align with each other?
Well, it's very hard to get a nuclear power plant nowadays. That'd be one of the biggest problems, the hurdles to overcome. I mean, nuclear is a fantastic clean energy. Other than that, you know, and they've gotten safer over the years, and we're all for nuclear power. We hope it's in the portfolio of the future, but it can't be the only thing we rely on. You know, again, talking about wind, one of the things, and this is why as you get more and more of these turbines out there, you're going to find that the power it gets cheaper is because the cost of that fuel, which is the wind, is free. It's been blowing out there ever since the beginning, and it'll be blowing out there until the end. And it doesn't cost you a thing. Now, building the actual monopiles or whatever array they're going to come up with in the future is going to always be an expense, but it's the same with a nuclear power plant. And even like Surrey and North Anna right now, they've had to get a second licensing on them, if I recall correctly, which is an unusual situation. So you can see how hard it is to put together a new plant. So there's other, just other than cost, there's other I guess you would say entanglements in that particular energy source. And again, this council completely and utterly supports nuclear power as well as wind.
Yeah, I'll add to that. We think we struck the right balance with the VCEA, and that it you know, while it requires the closing of carbon-based generation, we left nuclear available, but wanted to really focus on building out wind and solar and storage. I got to mention, we're also really pushing to make sure that we are building out energy storage to bridge that gap. So we kind of recognized that we needed to have multiple clean options on the table, but that the push really is more towards right now jumpstarting wind and solar.
I will mention one comment I received as well, that Dominion's estimate to extend the North Anna nuclear facility, I think, was an estimated cost of $19 billion, which is I think $9 billion more than the cost of the CVOW project. So I'm not verifying that as a comment I've received, and I wanted to share that. Given that we're almost at the top of the hour, hitting 5 o'clock, I want to thank all of our panelists for being here today. Does anybody have any final comments before we go?
Yeah, let me add one. You know, a lot of people really focus on what happens, how a bill becomes a law. And that's an important part of the process, but even more important is how a law gets implemented. And this is your opportunity through the public comment process at the SCC for this project, but there'll be many other opportunities. You have to be at the table to make sure that the VCEA is implemented in a way that not only meets our intention, but brings the full force of benefits to the workforce and to public health that it can. So please take advantage of the public comment opportunity and your ability to help shape how this project is implemented.
Thank you very much. I could not agree more. And in that vein, appreciate everyone being here. We will follow up with an email with all the information that you received today, because we know it was a lot. Please get involved, and thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your Thursday.